The whole point of pork rinds, though, is to have crunchiness while you're eating fried pig skin.
Ones. I like the softer ones.
And do you really think about it? When you're eating pork rinds, you're just eating deep fried, inflated pig skin.
Yeah.
That just sounds disgusting
It
on
does
so
sound
many
awful.
levels. Why would you even... Whoever thought of that?
I don't know.
Was it like a... I don't know, a starving little Mexican boy? Like, I don't know, I don't have anything. I'm going to throw something in the deep fryer and eat it. And then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, this tastes good.
This
Let me throw a little spices on it.
amazing.
And out we go. Oh, man.
Dude, I don't know, man.
And you know what? You wonder why I don't like pork rinds? Because I think of that every time. I just think of like dipping a pig into the grease and then just
Pulling it out.
pulling it out and going, oh, let me bite into it. Yeah.
It's delicious.
It's, you know what it is?
What?
It's the white man's chimichanga.
It's so white man's chimichanga.
So there was one thing, the last piece of weird news. I didn't know if you knew this. I didn't know this. Back in 2017, Gatorade was banned and fined $300,000 for bad mouthing water in a video game.
Toy Story?
Gatorade.
Toy Story? Now I'm hungry.
You're hungry for more pork rinds, apparently. Like I said, the white man's chimichanga while they sit around and watch football on a Saturday or Sunday or Monday or Thursday or what other day of the week else they do football. Who knows? I don't know. I don't watch the ball sport thing.
The ball sport. The ball sports.
Yay, my ball goes over there and yours goes over here.
But it takes teamwork.
Although I will say a show I have recently really gotten to enjoy is Ted Lasso on Apple TV. I know you don't have the service, so you can't watch it. But I just finished season 2, and that was a wonderful loveliness of a show. I was like, oh, let me watch it. Let's see if it actually is good, like people say, and it actually is very good. Yeah. I'll have to have you watch it sometime. But anyways.
Ted Lasso.
Yeah, Ted Lasso. But anyways, welcome to another episode of Use Your Words. Joined once again with Mr. Johnson.
My name is Aaron.
Mr. Johnson, last time we got together to record and everything, why the grimacing?
I'm slow. I'm hoping one day I won't be so slow.
No comment. We talked about a couple things. One of them being fear.
Yeah.
And we started off with that in part 1, kind of that fear in general, with you coming in with the premise that you thinking that it is healthy to live with fear.
Just a small smidgen, but then fear is more so just caution. Well, how I was thinking of it.
You were thinking of it as caution, not fear.
Yeah.
And then once you realize all the physiological and psychological effects that fear, especially constant fear, has on a person, you're like, oh, wait, my mind has been changed. Bring down the change my mind banner. My mind has been changed.
It has happened.
Now, this is going to sound completely opposite now of last week. And you know why that is?
Yes.
Why?
Because we're going to be talking about the fear of God.
The fear of God, yes.
Which is something we should have.
Right. So that was going to be my first question to you. Should you live with that constantly?
Guess what does that mean? What do you mean by constantly?
Should that always be something that's in the forefront of your mind? Should that be always something that you're thinking about? Should that be something that you live with constantly, the fear of God? Now, that being said, I want to hear your answer first, this is going to sound weird because I want your answer first, and then I want you to define for me what your thought is on what the fear of God is.
Oh, it's very simplistic and non big brain.
That's okay. That's why I want to hear from you first before we start going into it. So,
all right. Should always be.
So should we always have a constant like fear of God in the back of our head, especially as Christians?
I'm trying to. I mean, granted, I'm not going to remember really anything from it because it was a while ago. But I remember Pastor Dave having a sermon on it.
Okay.
And he was. All right. Back to it. I wouldn't say always, like where it's always like, I guess that's the thing. It's like you're not. I guess in my mind, you're not supposed to be like terrified of God. But it's just like you realizing who he is and what he is capable of. And you're just some little piece of creation that he could be like, just swipe you out and wipe you out just at the thought. But he doesn't. But I remember Pastor Dave saying that we grow out of it, or something to that effect. Whereas your relationship, you continue in your relationship with God, it's like that fear is replaced by something else. That's something else I don't entirely remember.
Okay.
But I feel like, so I guess my question would be though, is realizing like the power of God, and I guess in my mind that's what you would in a sense be fearful of, is realizing all of what he is and what he can do. I mean, look in the past. I mean, granted, that was all Old Testament stuff, but like, you look at the flood and stuff, like he could do stuff to just wipe out humanity.
Yep.
Like he ain't short of any power of doing any of that. So it's just like, could do this if you wanted to. I'm sure there's some people that probably think that he brought the plague upon us to do some correction. I don't know. I've never looked into that. I've always thought about looking into that. But I'm sure there's Christians out there that are like, oh, this is wiping. This is here to wipe people out. But I was like, oh, that'd be weird. I don't think, wait, he wouldn't do that though, would he?
Well,
no.
Why?
No. Okay, that's different. I'm just thinking of the flood, but that was, he would never
flood the earth again.
Never flood the earth again. Yeah, it's not just, yeah. Anyway, whatever.
Okay, so so to summarize your answer then,
yeah,
and correct me if I'm wrong.
You're wrong.
Fear isn't something that should always be there. You kind of grow out of it over time.
I feel like you should always have something there to some point and never get too.
Okay, so let me ask this then. Get too comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Let me ask this. So, what do you define the fear of God as? Is it just straight up fear, or is it something else?
Well, I guess, no, I wouldn't think it's like just straight up fear. That's where I was just thinking of, to a point, it's realizing who he is and just knowing that he is all powerful kind of thing. But it's not like, that's the thing. It's you're not like shuddering and trying to hide away from him and interacting with him because you're terrified of him.
Mm-hmm. What would it be then?
I don't know. What else would it be? I don't know. I don't know.
Okay, so if you're not scared of something, right?
Yeah.
And you're kind of sitting there in awe of something by its power and grandeur and majesty, that's called reverence.
Yes.
You're having reverence for something. So, and that always is kind of weird. You have to equate fear as reverence. And it's like, because they're two different wordings completely in the English language.
Yeah.
But when you read through the Bible, many times it talks about fearing the Lord.
Right.
It talks about that. And then you read the biblical scholar passages. So again, biblical scholars who, make their life and money and livelihood, studying the Bible, interpreting the Bible, and everything.
How does that work?
They say that it's essentially coming back to the fact that it's not, we don't need to fear anger, because God really isn't the same as like a tyrant or a dictator.
Right.
It's that fear is more that reverence, that awe, that thing that helps us to keep from doing the things that maybe we want to do that we know we shouldn't do, because God says, hey, don't do this because, hey, I know it's better for you.
Yes.
So my answer to the whole question, that I asked you, which is completely opposite of the answer that I gave for the other one, which is, I think it's always good to have a healthy fear of God constantly.
Constantly. Okay.
And I don't think it's something you should grow out of. Now, what you were talking about earlier, when you were talking about the message that Pastor Dave gave and everything.
Yeah, I don't remember any of that.
He was talking about real fear at that point.
Okay, he was.
He was saying like, at first, some people are come to God through the idea of God being loving and gracious and everything, and some go, come to God and go, and they come a way of, I can't believe, that as humanity we're still destined for sin. We're destined for hell. That we're here like this, and we're doing these things. And some people have that natural fear of like, God could smite me at any time or whatever, and that is a natural reaction to something that is outside of your control and something that has ultimate long-term consequences. I'm not going to deny that,
Right.
And especially for maybe a non-Christian or someone of another religion, that's like always a constant thing. It's like, what are you guys believing in with all this? And so I get that where, some people, it might start out as legitimate fear, not fear of God as in reverence, but fear as in fear what God could do.
Could do to him, yeah. Yeah.
So yes, at that point, you do have to grow out of that fear eventually, because by staying in that fear, you limit yourself so much. You only experience this minuscule little portion of God over in this corner. A lot of it, which is what you see kind of in that Old Testament style, that more judging and wrathful God that you see in there, Sodom and Gomorrah, the flood, like you mentioned earlier, the plagues of Egypt, the various things going on there. All those things that would make people very fearful of what is going on.
Be a little scared.
So, yes, in that case, fear is a very legitimate response in those things.
Yes.
But at the same time, you have to imagine, so let's take the plagues, for example, right?
Yes.
You have to imagine the Egyptians were very much in fear, scared of what was going on.
Right.
But at the same time, you have to imagine Abraham. Well, I just said Abraham. Wow.
Abraham.
Moses. Yeah. Woo! Moses and Aaron were very much probably in awe of what was going on. But they both were in fear. They were in fear because of the power and majesty and the control that God had. Yeah. It was like a reverence. Yeah. Moses, I almost called him Abraham again. Moses and Aaron. I think because there's an A in there, it's making my brain go bleh. And then at the same time, you have the Egyptians who were completely fearful for everything that was going on around them with the various, the river turning to blood, the frogs.
The frogs. I can't. The locust.
They should have just had like burrowing spiders as one of the plagues. I think people would have been really freaked out. Spiders that burrow into people's skin, lay eggs, and then the spiders come out.
You might make a movie. Why don't you?
You know what? I think I will. The 11th plague.
The 11th plague.
I'm kidding.
I wonder, like, even because obviously, like, there was the whole thing. I mean, what was that? See, now I don't remember this part of it. Yeah, that was just the last one. was where you covered your like the door or like the frame or whatever in, is it like lamb's blood or something like that.
Oh,
So the angel of death would
the
pass.
yes, for it was essentially where if they didn't do the lamb's blood on the door frame, the firstborn would die.
Yeah, I wonder like how terrified people, even though that they did it, would be for that night to come past.
Well, you had to imagine at that time, there was a lot going on,
Yeah,
but
he's
they
already
had they
all
had to
those
have
other things.
they had to have faith in that's what was happening. They've
Oh,
seen
yeah.
how they were protected, from other things going on, and
Right.
it would be one thing if that was the first plague
Oh my god.
that hit them,
Right.
but it was the last.
Yep.
And they had seen how God had been helping them through the other ones. It's like,
Yeah.
I hate to say it this way. It's like you were in college. You don't jump right into Spanish 3. You start at Spanish 1. You got to build up, okay? And that's the same thing in our lives too. You don't. And some people go, oh, just dive right into the deepest part of the faith pool and start swimming and keep going.
You'll be good.
That's not how it always goes, because a lot of those people who dive right into the end part, yes, there are going to be some who are going to be like, oh, I'm swimming and I'm treading water. I'm good.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are going to do that big dive, right away, and they are just going to drown because, like Jesus says in the New Testament, a lot of people, some people might try do this, but it's like a weed, if it's on the path to the side, in the rocky areas where they don't have a lot of good soil, in other words, a good foundation underneath them, they're going to grow quickly, but they're not going to have a base, and then they're going to wither and die when some sort of pressure comes.
Yeah.
Same thing. You dive head first deep into that faith pool. You don't have a good foundation under you. In other words, you haven't taken swimming 101. You're not going to do so well.
This is going to be a scary trip.
And in this case, swimming 101 could be anything from, hey, basic Bible reading to, taking maybe a basic Bible class, a theology class or something like that, stuff like that. Or maybe theology class is 102 and Bible reading is 101, stuff like that.
Oh, man. I felt so stupid. This is many years ago. But being at a friend's house and talking about they're at school. And their parent was like right there with us. We were talking. They had brought up theology class. I was like, oh, that's got to be the worst. And then at the moment, I don't know why I didn't make the connection as theology is like studying the Bible and stuff like that. I was like, oh.
Yeah, it is. It's a little bit more than just studying the Bible. It's like studying the actual, like, various precepts behind the various things in there. We always say, hey, this is why you do communion. Well, why is communion this way? What's the theology behind it? What is the theology behind the fear of God? What is the theology behind the love of God? What is the theology behind salvation? What is the theology behind this, that? What is the theology, because if you're Catholic, you would study the theology of transubstantiation? However you say it. That's where they believe that the cracker and the wine turn into the actual body and blood. But that's also where you studied, like, in general, stuff like the theology of atonement. And why Christ dying on a cross was the ultimate sacrifice that paid for everything, and why we can't do it on our own. It's not just, oh, I believe this. It's actually going through and you actually have to, like, cross-reference stuff, and it
becomes a thing.
It gets hard.
I've always wondered, I feel like I've asked some of my friends that are Catholic, but like what? It was at a wedding where they had to like go and bring something before Mary, or offer something to Mary. Did they bring a flower? I don't know. It was weird, but they walked over and then knelt before Mary and did something for Mary, and then came back to the center. I guess the whole service continued. But Mary is really big thing in the Catholic.
Yeah, and depending on who you ask in the Catholic Church, they'll either say, "Oh, we don't pray to Mary" or this, but then you talk to other people, and it's like, "Yeah, you do," but that one I haven't studied enough of to kind of go down that path. But regardless of the
It's
fact,
interesting.
regardless of the fact, bringing it back here, Mr.
Bring it
Johnson.
back.
Yeah,
Ooh, yeah.
because like we were talking about, fear of God. So let me ask you this: why is it important to have the fear of God? What does that do for you?
I think it's kind of, well, in my mind, it's kind of like what you said earlier. So it's like you're not just off going willy-nilly and doing whatever you want, thinking there's going to be no consequences for it, kind of thing.
Right.
It's just something to keep you in check and make you think about, oh, this could do bad for me. Whether it's short-term or long-term or whatever. But that was always my main, I guess, thought on that. Is why. Yeah.
Okay.
The only thing I've ever thought.
So I think it carries a couple things. One being kind of what you talked about. It kind of brings the gravity and severity of sin into fuller view.
Yeah.
Because if we kind of sit back and look at it and think about it, the fact is that God is holy and he can't have anything non-holy in his sight, period. Full stop. Can't be done. Okay? So if we look back and analyze that, from a subjective and an objective point of view, about how this works, we have to realize that we as humans like to be very selfish. We like to be very sinful, and sometimes not even intentionally, and something happens and we catch ourselves going into an area that we never thought we'd go down.
Yeah.
But I wonder also, and let me ask your opinion on this. Can the fear of God bring you into a better relationship with God?
I mean, I would think so.
Why?
I guess just the first thought is, because if you do have the fear, you're just saying, can it bring you into a better relationship with him? That's all you're asking, right?
Well, I'm just asking. Right. I'm asking how. Like, how does it?
How? Well, yeah. How is it? How is having that fear? How can that make it a better relationship?
Yeah.
I guess I'm just trying to think if you follow. I guess I'm just thinking of just if you're having that fear and that causes you to follow him, or follow, I guess, not just be willy-nilly and go off and doing whatever you want. I guess I'm trying to think. I mean, wouldn't that at least over time?
Well, maybe let me put it this way, because I think this. So this is from William D. Eisenhower.
Yeah.
From Christianity Today. I'm not going to read the whole article or quote of this, but there's I think one part in here that helps maybe frame it better.
Okay.
Okay. For in truth, the world's threats are temporary. When we expect God to balance the stress of the world, we reduce him to the world's equal.
Hold up. What was that last part? To what?
When we expect God to balance the stress of the world, we reduce him, God, to the world's equal. In other words, this world is a very temporal, limited time span. That we're on it, on the earth. B, that it's going to be around. And C, of the time we get to enjoy it. When I say time we get to enjoy it, as far as your health and how well a quality of life you have, because you could be living for 99 years, but maybe only able to actually enjoy life for maybe 70 of those years.
Yeah.
So when I say that, that's why. So what he's saying is, hey, we look around the world and what is happening in the world is temporary. What is God? God is not temporary.
It's kind of eternal.
He's infinite, internal, right?
Yes.
So if we're more concerned about what is happening with the world, and that's not to say not to be concerned about, children starving over in our country or the refugee problems or anything like that. It doesn't mean not to be caring and concerning for your fellow man. What it really means is if you're more concerned about what your neighbor thinks about you because of your beliefs and what you follow than who God is, then you're putting more of your faith and your hope into worldly things. And then at the same time, if we're so concerned about the stress of work or the stress of money or the stress of this, and we put that before God, and we're saying, "Oh, I'm going to put the temporary things in front of God."
Yeah. Okay.
We're not respecting God at all. But having that healthy fear kind of puts things in perspective.
Yeah.
God is eternal. We're going to be with God eternally if you're a Christian. Everything else, not so much. It's eventually going to be burned away.
Reduced to what is that? Well, what is it with thieves breaking and steal, moth and rust destroy? Yeah.
Well, it even talks about in Revelation eventually the earth will be destroyed.
The new one's on its way.
Even all that gold and everything that you're hoarding up because of the great financial collapse, guess what? It doesn't matter. It's going away.
It's not going past the grave with you.
Exactly. So having a healthy fear of God is a great thing to have, honestly. I don't think that's anything wrong with that. I think it's something that will be good to have going forward. But having fear in the right... Say that again?
How the fear changes.
Yeah, and I would say make sure it's the right type of fear, not the fear I'm cowering in the corner fear. It's the fear of reverence and awe fear.
Yes. So I've never heard it described as that before.
And it's hard to keep that in perspective.
I thought they were separate.
It's hard to keep that in perspective at times because, and this is kind of a fault of our English language in some way. Our English language is very... weird. I'm sure if this was in German, this would be so descriptive, it would make perfect sense, but I'm not a German speaker, so I can't tell you that.
I gotta start learning German.
Because, any of those languages, which are very, they have like 5 million words for like one English word, and each word means a slightly different variation of the English way to do things.
Oh my gosh.
So... it's more descriptive than what we have, essentially, is what I'm getting at. English can sometimes be, for lack of better terms, not exactly the most direct way to say things. So.
Jeez Louise. That hurts the brain.
Oh, there's a lot more to hurt your brain after that. But yeah, so that's kind of the weirdness of it, and you kind of, and I get it. It's not exactly the easiest thing to comprehend, especially when you go, well, I'm supposed to fear and God is love, perfect love. And you're like, how do these things work together?
How do they go together? They don't.
Yep. So I'm going to finish up here with another quote here from William D. Eisenhower. So he has an article called Fearing God in Christianity Today. And here's the rest of it here that I think is pertinent and kind of sums it up here. As I walk with the Lord, I discover that God possesses an ominous threat to my ego, but not to me. He rescues me from my delusions, so he may reveal the truth that sets me free. He casts me down only to lift me up again. He sits in judgment of my sin, but forgives me nonetheless. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, but love from the Lord is its completion.